And we're live. Welcome back, everyone. Onan here. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm using a little different mic setup today, and I'm not sure I've got all the bugs worked out, but in some of the testing I did ahead of time, it seemed okay. And you'll have to let me know if you hear a fan in the background. The air conditioner is very loud in this office space where I'm at, and I don't think it comes through the mic, but I can hear it in the headphones. So if you hear a buzzing in the background, just let me know in the comments. I'm going to keep this short today. I've got about 30 minutes, but I wanted to, in it sort of in the context of a comment that uh, someone left over on the UCM channel. It was one of the recent episodes. I don't think the latest episode. And the comment was, so we spent a lot of time talking about quote unquote the rules, and I guess it comes across as complaining about the rules, and maybe that is accurate. I guess maybe we do just complain about the rules. But someone in the particular episode this person was reacting to was um, us asking why Catholics get so bent out of shape about the rules, and even about things that I don't think people really actually need to worry about. It had to do in the context of pleasure, receiving pleasure in the course of the marital act, and whether certain types of pleasure or the amount of pleasure, the frequent, how much pleasure someone was getting from the marital act, if that was morally problematic. I mean, I guess if you go back as far as Augustine and those, maybe you need to worry about that. But I think modern Catholic morality, whether it's traditionalist or not, typically, as long as you're engaging in the marital act, completing the right way, no birth control, it's sort of like have fun, right? But there are still those who find themselves bent out of shape because that seems to be the Catholic thing to do, because there just seems to be an awful lot of rules when it comes to these topics as compared to, I would say, a lot of other areas of our life. And so the video was sort of a commentary on that, those on that extreme. I would say the extreme scrupulous side of people. And in the commentator, who I believe, I don't think I'm revealing anything, but came from sort of a pagan background, or at least a very non-Catholic background, let's say following no rules, and made the comment that having no rules is just as let's see, um, neuroticism inducing as having too many rules. I guess I don't know. I guess I've never been in that situation to know. I can see. I mean, I this is why as much time as we spend sort of analyzing and critiquing it, and it's sometimes criticizing some of the rules, we mained, I remain solidly Catholic from my perspective, and intend to stay that way, because I do think the the core of it provides value and truth and goodness in ways that I don't think any other faith or Christian denomination really does. And I do um, more or less ascribe to the notion, maybe in a general philosophy, not as an absolute set of rules, that um, having some moral guidepost is generally a good thing. Having some, so the fan just kicked off, so you'll have to let me know if there was a background noise before that isn't there now. But so I can see the argument for why having no moral guidelines and no moral expectations or whatever is has its own set of problems, and I've never advocated for that. There seems to be this misperception that you're either full-fledged Father Rip, playing by Father Ripperger's playbook, or you want just complete and total moral anarchy. And I don't think those have to be the only options we have. I hope not. 'Cause neither one of those is super appealing and whatever. But that seems to be the oftentimes it's presented in a polarized way that you're either like I said, following the Ripper, not to pick on Father Ripperger, but you're either following the Ripperger rules or you're following no rules, and there's no in between. And I don't think we have to go to those extremes. Um, but this person made the comment that and I'll take this as fair criticism because he said you guys spend all this time complaining about these rules and some of these that seem to be kind of arbitrary, set by celebrity exorcists or celibates of old. And yet, what do you guys want? You guys just want different set of rules by the same celibates or neurotic people or whatever. And I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. So are the rules the problem, the solution, neither, both? I don't know. I mean, like I said, I don't think having no rules is the right solution, but I don't think we have to choose between that and just following the most strict. I mean, e- even Father Rippiger looks like a raging liberal compared to, some of the people I've run into online who are, I would say, real extreme. I mean, I would say they're really following Augustine to a T. You know, they do not engage in the marital act except when they are trying to have a baby, and then once they're pregnant or whatever, they're done. You don't do it anymore, and if you ask for it, it's going to be at least a sin, but on the part of the person asking for it. I mean, I don't think there's many traditionalists today that follow that extreme version. So it's all relative, kind of. It's like, okay, how extreme, how strict are you going to be? But I sort of, I sort of see kind of Father Ripperger as being the kind of the modern traditionalist perspective, maybe more extreme than even a lot of traditionalists are. Um, is sort of being on one side of the you know one end zone, okay, and then the other end zone being, well, we're not going to apply any rules, or we're going to only a very basic set of rules, that, let's say, I think a lot of Protestants probably do that. I mean, I think it's like, okay, you know, I don't even know that too many of them are all that bent out of shape about fornication or premarital sex, but basically, yeah, don't be cheating, make sure it's consensual, and don't have abortion. And some of them are like, don't use abortifacient contraception over. But that's kind of the extent. And no porn. I think most of them are against porn. But you know, we as Catholics, have a whole new. It's not enough. I mean, that's just the basic baseline. But on top of that, we have no contraception for any reason whatsoever. No IVF. Um, the church, pretty clear, very clearly says no sex before marriage. Um, and then of course, I would say the Catholics are the only one that really have any kind of a um, express rule against, let's say, masturbation, things like that. Um, and but I think it's if you spend any time at all paying attention to these things, I think it is hard not to develop a level of neuroticism um, about them, because there's a lot of people saying a lot of different things. You've got, and I think there's a lot of quote unquote rules. I don't want to say on the books or whatever, but that are held by that I don't think we really follow anymore, but are still, they were rules by quote unquote doctors of the church and saints, Saint Augustine, Saint Thomas Aquinas, Saint Alphonsus Liguori. There are others. And so, what are we supposed to do with those? Are we just entitled to ignore them altogether? Do we have to give them, essentially, almost a presumption because they're doctors of the church? I mean, I don't know that there's a good answer there. And and depending who you ask, you can't even trust the catechism. Some will say, oh yeah, you got to follow the catechism. Humanae Vitae is infallible, and some will say, well, it's not. But okay, but it's not infallible, it doesn't mean you can disregard it, right? And so there's just a lot of, I would say, a lot of gray area out there about, okay, what are the actual rules we have to follow, and to what degree, and where does formation of conscience, following your conscience, come in? For better or for worse, that is sort of how I have resolved some of these dilemmas for me personally. Um, is I used to be very neurotic about these things. Now I'm more curious. I've kind of gotten past the neurotic side of things, and I've just got to a point where I I try to be as aware as I can of church teaching. I try to be as faithful as I can to church teaching, especially that I feel like I absolutely must follow. And then there are just certain things that I have. It's a blend of um, you know following church teaching, applying my conscience, applying basic common sense and reason, that for me at least have allowed me to find a um a place of relative peace. It doesn't mean it's easy, it doesn't mean it's without friction or worry, but for me I've been able to reach a place where I can live in relative peace with a certain with a only an amount of tension that doesn't like cause my faith to be in jeopardy, right? And I don't know if that's the right approach, but I feel very, very comfortable it's the right approach for me. I don't really have a lot of misgivings about it, but um I could be wrong, right? And that's part of the reason why, I mean, you can read between the lines. I'm sure people that follow me kind of know where I'm falling on these things, but I'm not here to tell anyone else what they got to do because if I'm wrong, I'll accept the consequences of being wrong, but I don't want to be responsible for someone else doing something wrong because they did what I said. But that's bothersome to me too, because I remember what it was like to be neurotic about these things, and I see every day people that are neurotic about these things, and maybe even worse, people that like to make other people neurotic about it. So you go onto Reddit and stuff like that. I tell you, you go in there and you ask for advice and sympathy or whatever, you're not going to get it. You're going to get blocked. And so, it's hard for me to remember how painful and horrible it was to be in that constant state of moral neuroticism, because all I was trying to do was to know the rules and follow the rules, and generally failing at following the rules. And I know there are a lot of people that I mean, I spent the vast majority of my adult life in that state, and I know there are a lot of people that are still there and and are not, for one reason or another, able or willing to kind of take some of the steps that I've done to form their conscience, or try to do the things that they have to do for themselves and their marriages. And I feel bad because on the one hand, I want to reach out to these people and say, you don't have to live that way. There is freedom from that. There is a there is a way to be Catholic and faithful and whatever, without being under that constant state of distress. And off record, I'll generally tell people that, but I guess I'm not at the point now where I'm willing to just come out and say, here's what I do, whatever. And I guess kind of to go back to that original comment about, okay, what do you guys want? You want the church to change rules? I don't know. Um, I honestly don't know, but what I do believe is there is a very strong lack of transparency in this space, and I think the voices that people will hear are going to, by and large, say the same thing with some slight variances. But whether it's I don't know if I should lump Tim Gordon into this, but let's go ahead and lump Tim Gordon, Father Ripperger, Matt Fred, Christopher West, whatever. I mean, there obviously there are differences between those folks, but I think by and large, none of them are going to say anything that resembles kind of what I talk about here and what we talk about over on the other channel. And I firmly believe that it, you know, for whatever faults are due and owing to us, whether it's being an error or being mistaken or whatever, what I don't think they can compete with is just the transparency and what's the word I'm looking for? I guess just legitimacy of our opinions. I mean, we just say it. We just say it as we think it is, for better or for worse. Genuine. We're just genuine. We just genuinely say it how it is, and I don't think there are many. I don't think there are many other voices out there that really genuinely say everything that they believe or talk about in transparent ways the places where they probably struggle in the interior of their heart and mind. And I just think it gives a skewed approach and message out there, and so that people, when they find themselves struggling, they go on and they find everyone saying in unison, oh yeah, this is the way it is, these are the rules you got to follow, I don't care how hard it is, don't care about your conscience, don't care about any of this other stuff. And it can be very, very lonely, and I don't think right now the church, in the, let's say, in the big sense of the word, has necessary things in place to help people in these kind of real world situations that I think almost all of us find ourselves in at some point in time. And so, do I think? Do I? First of all, I don't think the Pope is going to fix any of this anytime soon through an encyclical, and I think it's a better question of whether he should. I know some have said, well, there is, to the extent there's any gray area out there, that's better than having that gray area sort of resolved by just more rules, especially if they're quote unquote bad rules. So I don't know. I don't know what the solution should be, but I do think at a bare minimum, we need to provide people, Catholics, good Catholics, struggling Catholics, wannabe Catholics, with the ability to be, truly authentic with themselves, with their spouses, with their priests, because we should be able to be authentically broken, if that's, let's just use that term, broken. But I don't think a lot of people feel like they're allowed to be authentically broken. They are immediately criticized, condemned, corrected, told, warned, threatened, whatever, and I think I don't think that is the right approach. I don't think that's fixing anyone. I think that's just people just clam up and just don't talk about it anymore, and then they deal with it the way they do, but oftentimes without any real resolution, maybe in secret from their spouse, maybe with a lot of pain and guilt that because they feel like, well, I guess I'm the only one that has these problems. No one else has these struggles. And so I think the doing nothing, I don't think is a good solution. I think the lay of the land is such that there is enough out there to cause people to be afraid of being authentically broken, of being transparent about their experiences, forced to question their own basic instincts and common sense and reason. And for a lot of, for a number of people, at least, I don't know if it's a lot of people, it results in a crisis of faith, and sometimes they just abandon the faith entirely because they can't constantly live in that tension. So that's kind of what I wanted to share here. I'd be curious what people think. would I like Pope Leo to call me up and say, Onan, what do you want? Draft an encyclical for me? I mean, okay, fine. I got some ideas. I got some helpful ideas. But maybe that's not, maybe there's wisdom in the fact that some of these things are just left either unanswered or in tension. And what we have to do is just create an environment for people to seek the grace that they need to do better, to have mercy, find God's mercy and accept it and believe in it, follow their consciences, that kind of stuff. Maybe that is ultimately what we need, but I don't see a lot of overt support for that out there. So I guess if I'm going to support anything, I'm going to support that. Is people being authentic and honest with themselves, with their spouses, with their confessors, understand both the right and obligation you have to follow your conscience, and then just ask yourself, is this truly what God wants for me? What is the best plan that God has for me? And then you just, at that point, you have to go with it and have confidence that God sees sees the sincerity of your heart. I mean, I think, to me, that's the only way we can really resolve these things. And that's kind of what I have done. And I certainly would encourage other people to do that as well. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. If you guys have any further thoughts or whatever, just feel free to leave them in the comments. Send me a message if you want. Usually my contact information is in the description, and you can also go over on Twitter and send me a DM if you want. I'm always happy to respond. If you're not in the Discord community but are interested in doing so, send me a message. Craig at unchartedcatholicman.com is usually the best email. Go ahead and send me an email if you're interested. We have 2 Discords. We have one for the UCM community, and then I have another one really just for this community. There's a lot of people that are in both, but not everyone. And it's not necessarily a good fit for everyone to be in both. But if you're interested in that at all, feel free to just send me a message and we'll chat about that. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up and head home. I hope you guys all had a great week, that you're having a wonderful fall. And I don't know that I'll be able to do this next week because I got a lot of stuff going on. Actually, the next few weeks, because I'll be out of town for work or whatever. But I'll do my best to hop on if I can. So thanks, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. And until next time, everyone, have a good one.